automobile conditioning tips brought to you by Timemo Auto Global Limited. And of course, this video is for vehicle owners, drivers, fleet managers. And today I'm going to speak on the topic: dye help detect refrigerant leaks. Yes, a dye will help to detect refrigerant leak, most especially if the leak is very minute. That will help you to detect it. As this only happened in the system that dye was introduced into it during recharge. But if the dye was not introduced into it, you might not be able to do this. So for you to do that, you need dye injection tool that you use to introduce dye into the system while recharging the system. You also need the UV light, because it's the UV light that will help you to detect this leak. Yes, most especially some vehicles, their steering gear is leaking, gear oil is leaking, their engine oil is leaking, probably from the top cover because of the foam seal. So all those leakages, where do they normally go? They always leak on top of the compressor. So most time it will be very hard for you to be able to detect if your compressor is leaking. Of course, where your compressor is supposed to leak from is it's supposed to leak from the shaft seal, and also the main seal. That's the body where two parts are joined together. There is a seal there. So if that seal should deform, refrigerant will start leaking from there. But if you have a steering pump that is leaking, if you have a steering hose that is leaking, if you have engine that is leaking from the valve cover, all those leakages will go into on top of your compressor. So you will not be able to detect if actually your compressor is leaking. But with dye, it will help you, because if you conduct a blackout, let's assume you open your bonnet and you make the spot to be black, and you point your UV torch or UV light towards your compressor. If it's the compressor that is leaking, that UV light will detect. So this is the advantages UV light have over electronic leak detector, over using this our manual normal local way, foam and soapy water to check if there is leak. So I would advise you, all the AC technicians, even including the vehicle owners, drivers, fleet manager, you can get this dye for yourself and probably give it to your AC technician to inject into the system if you are having issues with leakage. Because when the system is leaking, it will end you at expensive repair. Reason being that where your refrigerant is leaking out from, oil is also leaking out from there, and that oil is supposed to go back to cool and also lubricate your compressor. So ensure that your system is free of leak. If it's leaking and you cannot find it, introduce dye into the system. It will help you to figure it out. Where does this leakage supposed to take place is where you have hoses. Leakage always takes place where two components are being connected together. For example, your refrigerant hoses are being connected to compressor, connected to condenser, connected to evaporator and expansion valve. So all these spots there are O-rings. So if that O-ring should deform, it will start leaking from there. So if you are suffering or looking for a leaks, or your system is leaking and you cannot figure out where it is leaking out from, I would advise you to introduce a dye into the system. That will also help you to detect that leaks. If you cannot find it from outside, just know that your evaporator is leaking. I want to believe that these few tips are useful. Kindly share it to benefit every other vehicle owners, drivers, and fleet managers out there. And of course, don't forget to follow Timemo for more automobile conditioning tips. Remember, knowledge saves cost. See you some other time.